Hello, and thank you for joining us today for our Postgraduate Finance Courses webinar. So my name is Lucy Welch. I'm your Student Inquiries Advisor. So we may have spoken over the phone or via email before. So just to let you know, as an attendee, your mic and videos have been disabled. So you'll just need to use the chat function to interact throughout the presentation. So whilst we do welcome questions, we do think that you'll get the most out of the presentation if you ask your questions at the end by the Q&A section, although we will also be monitoring the chat section throughout. So in order to use the Q&A section, it will be on the right-hand side of your screen. So you can either submit questions or you can upvote any questions that you think are particularly relevant to you or you'd like to be answered more imminently. So we'll also be sending around a recording of the webinar within a few days' time. And so with that said, I'll just pass over to Kevin now.
Okay, hello, good afternoon, welcome to the webinar. So my name is Kevin Campbell from Stirling Management School. So I'm going to begin this session just by talking firstly about the University of Stirling, which as you can see from the map on the left is located in Scotland, in the northern part of the United Kingdom, and Stirling is located in the centre of Scotland. On the right of the screen, you can see a couple of pictures. The top picture is of the centre of the city of Stirling, and underneath there is a picture of the top of the city of Stirling, upon which there is Stirling Castle. So Stirling is quite an ancient city. Like Edinburgh, which is the capital of Scotland, it has a castle. It is a royal city. It used to be the capital of Scotland, in fact. Eventually, the capital moved from Stirling to Edinburgh. So Stirling is an ancient city with a lot of history attached to it, and a very famous castle. So now I'm going to move on to the next slide, which gives you some information about the University of Stirling itself. So it's fair to say that Stirling is a relatively small to medium-sized university in the context of the UK. As you can see, it has around about 14,000 students. And as you can see, the majority of them are undergraduate, but we have quite a sizable postgraduate community as well of almost 4,000 students. There are quite a lot of staff at the university, so I'm a member of academic staff. We also have various other types of staff, including administrative and support staff. I've been a member of staff at the University of Stirling for many years, so I have a lot of experience of the institution, and it always has been a very international university. So there are approximately 120 plus different nationalities represented within our student population, and around about 1/5 of our students are from overseas, from out with the United Kingdom. So the next slide then just gives you some data on the University of Stirling in terms of different criteria based upon a survey called the International Student Barometer. So these statistics speak for themselves. So as you can see, overall satisfaction of students at Stirling is very high. And we have a very good reputation, as you can see from the other bullet points there, in terms of welcoming international students. The campus environment, I'll talk about that very shortly, at Stirling is a very important factor. Also, the quality of teaching at Stirling is very high. And We have excellent sporting facilities at Stirling. So we're Scotland's University of Sporting Excellence. We have many different sporting activities that students can engage in, including, for example, swimming. We have an Olympic-sized swimming pool on campus, and we have an active programme to encourage excellence in sport. So some of our swimmers are just back from the Commonwealth Games in Australia, and several medals were won at that competition. And our students have also been successful in previous Olympic Games as well. So moving on, you have here 4 pictures of the university campus. So Stirling campus is just outside the city of Stirling itself. It's what you might call a parkland campus, as you can see from these pictures. So the top 2 pictures give you a view of the student residences, or dormitories, you might call them. And the bottom 2 pictures show Airthray Loch, which is in the centre of the campus. So in other countries, that would be called a lake. So in Scotland, we call a lake a loch. So this is Airthray Loch, which is right in the heart of the campus. And in the bottom right picture there, if you can see the cursor on the screen, you will see a bridge that links the student dormitories with the rest of the campus where the teaching facilities are located. So that's by way of background, just to fill you in. Some more features about Stirling itself. So here is a picture, once again, of a street in the centre of Stirling. The campus is a short bus ride from Stirling Centre, so it's about 10 minutes by bus, maybe 25 minutes walking. You can cycle there as well. Although it's a city and was so named because recently, when the Queen celebrated her Diamond Jubilee, several towns were able to upgrade to cities, and Stirling was one of those towns. So although it's called a city, it really has the feel of a relatively compact and smallish town. It's very safe, has many activities. So there is a nightlife there. There are many cafes, there's very good shopping facilities. And as that bottom bullet point says, there's a warm and friendly community feel to Stirling, the city. And the campus is just on the outskirts of the city itself. So let me say a little bit about life as a student. Obviously, you have to pay your university fees. And over and above that, there are living costs. So this next slide gives you some indication of the cost of living as a student at the University of Stirling. So the second last column there gives it to you on a per week basis, and you can see the total is between £168 and £213 a week. That's broken down into various categories such as accommodation, bus travel if you happen to live in Stirling. If you live on campus, of course, then there's no requirement for frequent bus travel. Though, of course, you might want to go into Stirling and travel through to the cities of Glasgow and Edinburgh, which are very close by and which are around about maybe just over 35 minutes by train to Glasgow and slightly longer to Edinburgh, but they're very close. So depending upon your lifestyle, so if you eat out a lot and if you go to bars frequently, then your expenses might be a little bit higher or could be a little bit lower. And I think the takeaway from this is that the cost of living at Stirling, because it's a small place is not as high as in other large urban centres like Glasgow or Edinburgh. So I think it's fair to say that living costs is cheaper in Stirling than in other universities, and certainly the accommodation costs is very competitive as well. Moving on, the next slide gives you some information about general facilities on campus, and it talks firstly about the library. So the two pictures on the right of the screen show you parts of the library. The bottom picture shows you the traditional library shelf, and up above you have a view of the centre of the library. Libraries have changed a lot since I've been a member of staff at the University of Stirling. So many of our students now, although they're in the library to take books off the shelf and to study, you can also access the library remotely through the computer, through your internet connection. You can access electronic textbooks as well as physical textbooks, and particularly electronic journals for research and for writing essays and producing assignments. The library is open 12 hours a day. There are many rooms within the library where you can study privately, and you can do group work with other students as well within the library in rooms that can be booked. And there is a study zone that's open 24 hours, 7 days a week for most of the year. The second point then on this slide is about our virtual learning environment. So all universities have a system which connects students to the material that's delivered by academic staff. So our virtual learning environment is called Canvas. It's a new system that we've used this year. It's very modern, up to date. We used to use Blackboard, but we've transitioned to Canvas because it's slightly more functional. So when I give a lecture to students, for example, 1 week or more before the delivery of the lecture, I will upload the slides to Canvas. To Canvas, I will also upload many other learning materials, such as solutions to tutorial questions, mock tests, solutions to those tests, links to various media, including journal articles, relevant articles from newspapers, such as the Financial Times, which students have access to also in terms of the full subscription through the university library. So that finishes the first part of the presentation, which is about the university in general and about the facilities on campus. So I'm now going to talk about the finance courses delivered within Stirling Management School. So as you can see, there are 4 courses that I'm going to talk about this afternoon: investment analysis, international accounting and finance, and banking and finance. I'm going to cover them in that order, but I'm first going to talk about the general structure of the academic year for postgraduate study. So all of our top postgraduate master's courses are 1 year in duration. So the academic year begins in September and finishes at the end of August. So semester 1 is our autumn semester. It runs up until just before Christmas, and students study a collection of modules that comprise 70 credits. In semester 2, the spring semester, that kicks off in the middle of January and runs through till April, there's a collection of modules that comprise another 70 credits. And then in the summer semester, students write a dissertation over a 3-month period, which comprises the final 40 credits. So all of the individual elements of study represent in total 180 credits, and they're divided across the 3 semesters in the fashion that you see on the screen. So that's the general overview of the structure of study, and I'll come back to that topic during the rest of the presentation. So let me move on now to the first of our master's courses, the MSc Investment Analysis. So as you can see, I am the director of this course, and it's housed within the Accounting and Finance Division of Stirling Management School. So this is a course then which, as the name suggests, is designed for students who want to have a career in the investment industry. So the logo at the bottom of the screen there is from CFA Institute. So CFA stands for Chartered Financial Analyst. That's a qualification which is highly sought after within the industry. Many of our students wish to go on to study for and become Chartered Financial Analysts. So because we are an official partner of CFA Institute through the University Affiliation Programme, we cover 70% of the syllabus of CFA Institute. So students then that study at Stirling and complete our master's programme have a very strong foundation to go on and be successful in the CFA exams and become CFA qualified. Okay, so that's one of the key elements of the course, that route into a professional career and the CFA accreditation. So we cover both sides of the investment industry. So sometimes it's broken down into the buy side, fund management, and the sell side, referred to also as investment banking. So on this next slide, you can see that demarcation between the sell side and the buy side. Most of our students go on to work for institutions in the buy side, so they're mainly concerned with equity analysis and portfolio construction. Some students, however, also decide to go down the sell side route, working for an investment bank, and they might, for example, be doing research, which is then used by the buy side for investment decisions, or they might be involved in assisting corporations price initial public offerings, for example, or helping them to identify and price takeover targets. So let me now move on to the structure of the investment analysis course. So in the autumn semester, students study, as you can see, 4 modules. And what those modules demonstrate in terms of the content is the fact that as an investment analysis, you need to know quite a few subjects to be a well-rounded analyst. So you need to have some basic economic understanding of how both the macroeconomic and the microeconomic environment affect firms that you're valuing. You need to have some good quantitative skills, so you need to be able to manipulate data. So quant methods is important for investment analysis. You also need to understand accounts, because it's financial data that investment analysts use. That's the raw material, which then feeds into their investment decisions. And then there's corporate finance. So this is really a fundamental course which covers a lot of the basic material that students studying, not just investment analysis, but all of the other programs also need to know. So you need to be aware of what's called the time value of money. So how you value money, not just today, but in future periods. So based upon the rate of interest, what is the present value of some future cash flow? So that's a fundamental principle, and a lot of the valuation that's done of financial instruments, be they stocks, bonds, or derivatives, are based upon the basic principles of the time value of money that are covered at the early stages of the corporate finance module. We also cover the financing decisions, so how companies raise money through debt, through equity, through other types of securities, and also then how they invest that money to grow the value of the business, and how they might pay dividends to shareholders and other important corporate decisions. So those are the four courses that are taught in the autumn semester, comprising in total 70 credits. So the autumn semester will come to an end in December. There is an exam diet, so students will be sitting exams just before Christmas. All modules typically are assessed by some form of end of semester assessment if they're a 20 credit module, and some form of in-semester assessment such as an assignment or a class test or an essay. So the final exam in the exam diet does not account for 100% of the module grade. So there's an element of assessment during the module, and that helps students to know whether or not they're understanding the materials. It's useful feedback in terms of the learning process. So moving on to the spring semester, as you can see, we have a collection of modules in the spring, which in total comprise another 70 credits. So students need to understand the regulatory environment within which investment decisions are made. They need to be familiar with the ethical principles that should underlie the relationship between investment advisors and clients. So the CFA Institute Code of Ethics is a very important aspect of this module. The second module is concerned with the analysis of financial statements. This is an important part of the course because fundamentally, to value a company, you need to be able to understand how to take the data from the profit and loss account, the balance sheet, the cash flow statement, and to make sense of it and to use that data to work out whether or not a company's shares are correctly valued. The third module there, derivatives, is about a very important class of financial instrument. So you can buy a stock today on the stock market. You can get it immediately, 2 working days later in practice, or you can enter into a futures contract to buy stock not now but in the future, or an options contract that gives you the right to buy or sell stock at some future date. So derivatives are a very important class of financial instruments. So we have a module devoted to that important class of product. The final 2 modules are concerned with investments. One has an equity focus, as you can see, looking at shares and how they're priced and how you can construct shares into a portfolio to optimize the trade-off between risk and return. And the second module is concerned with fixed income, so bonds, securities that pay a fixed rather than a variable return. So fixed income is a very important asset class, and the other type of investment referred to there is alternative investments, of which there are a number. So private equity is one, investing in hedge funds is another. So those are the topics that are covered in that final module. So at the end of the spring semester, we have another exam diet, which is taking place at the moment. So it straddles late April and very early May. And then over June, July, and August, students are writing their dissertation. So this is a piece of individual work comprising 10,000 words. And for investment analysis students, they have a choice between a case study of a specific quoted company. So they have to choose a company, analyze it in depth using what we call fundamental analysis, the techniques that they learn on the course, particularly financial statement analysis, and they have to come up to a recommendation as to whether they should buy, hold, or sell the stock. So this is the capstone element of the degree that enables students to pull together a lot of the material and knowledge that they've acquired during the course. The case study dissertation is structured, but each dissertation is unique because each student analyzes a different company. The second type of dissertation is what we call an academic topic dissertation, whereby you might be wanting to answer a question about companies in general. So you might download data from one of our databases, such as DataStream, S&P Capital IQ, or Bloomberg, over a sample of companies, and you might investigate, for example, whether or not variations in dividend policy affect company value, or whether differences in how companies structure their debt and equity, their capital structure, whether that affects the value of the company. So that's the traditional type of academic topic dissertation where you investigate some hypothesis, download some data for a sample of companies, and reach some conclusions based upon some statistical analysis. And then you relate that back, of course, to the academic literature at the end of the dissertation in the concluding chapter. So that is the course structure then for investment analysis. So just a few more points before we move on to the next course. What are the benefits of investment analysis? So I think one of the key benefits, as I've mentioned already, is our affiliation with CFA Institute. So CFA Institute do not provide any exemptions from their professional exams. So you can only become a CFA charter holder if you pass the exams. The exams are challenging. There are 3 of them spread over a day. So the CFA Level 1 is in June and December. Level 2 is in June, and then Level 3 is in June. So you might take 2.5 to 3 years to become qualified. The benefit of doing the MSc in investment analysis is that you then have most of the knowledge that you need to go on and become successful in those exams. Because we are partnered with CFA Institute, we have some scholarships to give away, 10, which give back much of the cost of enrolling for the Level 1 exam. That has a value of approximately $1,200 US. Also, because the investment analysis course is well established, it took in its first intake of students 29 years ago. So this September, we'll have our 30th intake of students to this course. So we have many students who've graduated over the years, alumni who occupy senior roles in the investment industry, many of whom come back and give guest lectures. So that's one of the benefits also of doing the course, access to previous students in terms of interacting with them at guest lectures, but also being part of a global alumni network. A couple of other things just to point out before we move on to the next course. Because of our affiliation with CFA Institute, we are allowed every year to submit a team to the CFA Institute Research Challenge. So this is a global equity analysis competition. So each year, students are given a company and they have to analyze it. So we have a team of 5 students that we select each year to compete. And as you can see from this slide, we have done very well historically in this competition. So in 9 of the last 11 years, we have got to the UK final. We've won it a couple of times. We beat Oxford once, they beat us once, and we were in the global finals in Chicago a couple of years ago. So we have a really unparalleled record in the UK context in this competition. And I think that demonstrates the quality of the teaching at the University of Stirling on this course, and also the quality of the students that we've had studying at Stirling over the years. And this is a picture of the students who won the UK final in 2016 and who competed in the global finals in Chicago. And you can get a feel there of the global nature of the student cohort. So Kobe on the left is from Ghana, Kwong is from Vietnam, Chris in the middle is from the UK, he's actually a Scottish student, and then the two students on the right, Tinghu and Xingyi Yao, are from China. And I actually met Xingyi weekend before last. I was in Shanghai for an alumni reunion and I met up with them there. So last thing to say about MSc Investment Analysis is that we have a prize for the top student every year. This is awarded by Walter Scott Global Investment Management. They are based not very far from Stirling in Scotland's capital, Edinburgh. And you can see there Marco Negrelli from Italy, who was the top student last year. And he's been presented with the prize by Maxim Skorniakov, who was himself a student and a graduate of the MSc Investment Analysis course. Maxim is from Russia, and he came to study at Stirling on a Karanipia scholarship. And since then, he's been working through in Edinburgh for Walter Scott. And so each year they provide a prize for the top student, which has a value currently of £1,250. And this slide here, the final slide, gives you background on where the current cohort of students comes from. So this year we have 75 students studying on the MSc Investment Analysis, and they are from China, Cyprus, Georgia, Ghana, India, Malaysia, Malta, Mongolia, Pakistan, Poland, Singapore, Taiwan, Tanzania, Thailand, USA, Vietnam, and last but not least, UK, including some students from Scotland. And here is a testimonial from one of last year's students. So Arne Finster did very well on the course. He graduated with a distinction. He's, as you can see, from Germany. And he studied industrial engineering before coming to study the MSc Investment Analysis. So just a point to make here is that our master's courses are conversion courses. So you do not need to have relevant prior knowledge of investment analysis or business or finance. So Arne had a degree in engineering, and he came and was very successful on the course. Okay, so you could have a degree in chemistry. So we had a chemist a few years ago who did very well on the course, or languages. Okay, so we start from ground zero. We assume no prior knowledge. Okay, so that is the MSc Investment Analysis. Let me now move on to the second of our master's courses I'm going to be talking about this afternoon, International Accounting and Finance. So once again, this resides within the Accounting and Finance Division of Stirling Management School, and the director is Professor David McMillan, my colleague within the Accounting and Finance Division. So this is a master's course then, which mixes together accounting and finance modules, and it very much has an international focus. So nowadays, given the fact that we live in a globalized world where international financial markets are globalized, many companies operate internationally, so multinational corporations account for a substantial amount of world trade. Many companies are listed on different stock markets, and therefore it's important to understand differences between financial reporting standards around the globe, but also more fundamentally to understand international financial reporting standards, IFRS. So there has been a lot of consolidation of accounting practices. So many companies now follow International Financial Reporting Standards, IFRS, which enable then investors to more easily compare companies because they're using the same basis for their accounts. So that's a critical element, obviously, of our course. So moving on, this is the course structure in the autumn semester. You might notice that a lot of the modules are common with investment analysis. So many of the students across our suite of finance programs will have similar courses in the autumn semester. Accounting and Society is a course which is taken only by the International Accounting and Finance students in the autumn semester. Moving on to the spring semester, what differentiates International Accounting and Finance from investment analysis is that students have options in the spring semester. So as you can see, there are a variety of both accounting and finance courses from which they can choose. Okay, so they have to choose a group of modules that in total comprise 70 credits. So they have choices to make. Investment analysis students do not have choice simply because that course follows the CFA curriculum. So we need to make sure that we cover the knowledge required for the CFA syllabus, and therefore students that do investment analysis do not have any electives to choose from in the spring, but students doing international accounting and finance do, as you can see from this slide. And then, like investment analysis students, they have to write a 10,000 word dissertation in the summer semester. So what are the benefits then of doing the International Accounting and Finance course? I think one of the key benefits that I would highlight to you is the fact that it has an accreditation with ACCA. So this is the Association of Certified Chartered Accountants. So this is an accountancy body which is global, like CFA Institute. So it has headquarters in UK, but it has footprints in all countries. So you can study for ACCA in many countries around the world and become qualified as an ACCA. So there are common exams, and those exams are split into the foundation papers and then the more advanced papers. So if you successfully complete the program at Stirling, then you are entitled to exemption from 5 of the foundation papers. And if you take the advanced financial reporting module in the spring semester, you're also entitled to a further exemption from another of the foundation papers. So I think this is a key benefit of doing this program. So if you're thinking of working in the accounting profession and you want to become professionally qualified, then ACCA is a very good qualification. And the course, of course, in its own right, is a great course, but it also gives you that springboard to give you a faster route into becoming qualified as an ACCA member. So ACCA exists in 170 countries and has almost 500,000 members spread throughout the globe. So that's one of the key benefits of the MSc International Accounting and Finance. This is the class profile of the cohort of students this year. So as you can see, we have students both from the UK, from USA, and many other countries as well, as you can see from this slide. And here is a testimonial from one of last year's students, Kostas Lamprogiorgos. So he's making a couple of points here in this statement. He's talking about the Amplify Trading Week, which I'll come on to later. So it's an activity which all of our students across all of our finance courses engage in the spring semester. And he's also talking about ACCA, and for him that was an important element of the course, which made it attractive for him, because he wants to go on and become qualified as a professional accountant. So that's the second of our 4 finance courses. Let me now move on to the third of them, MSc Finance. So once again, this is taught by staff from Stirling Management School. It resides within the Accounting and Finance Division, and the course director is my colleague, Dr. Isaac Tabner, who also happens to be a chartered financial analyst. So Isaac is also a CFA, and Isaac actually was a student of the MSc Investment Analysis, and he then went on to become a CFA and also to do his PhD at the University of Stirling. And now he's a member of staff and he's director of the MSc Finance. So the objective then of this course is basically to provide students with knowledge of the techniques used by professionals who work in the industry. So it has a broader scope than investment analysis. So students that maybe don't want necessarily to specialize in investments, that might want to have a broader career in finance, might want to consider doing this course. In the autumn semester, the modules are in fact the same modules as students who are studying investment analysis take. Okay, so there's a common curriculum in the autumn for MSc Finance students. The difference is that in the spring, whereas investment analysis students stick to the curriculum that's set for them because it's relevant to the CFA qualification, MSc Finance students have choices. So they can study some of the modules taken by investment analysis students, but they also have additional modules that they can select. So for example, they can take a module in mergers and acquisitions or in behavioral finance, and they can also do modules in research methods and empirical methods in both accounting and finance. So students that are doing the MSc Finance module, they're maybe thinking, they're not quite sure yet about what route they want to take. They might be thinking potentially of a career in research, maybe moving into the academic route, maybe doing a PhD once they complete their studies. So MSc Finance gives the potential to study a broader range of subjects, given that it's not constrained by professional accreditation, unlike the previous 2 courses that I've talked about. And once again, in the summer semester, there's a dissertation, which is the capstone for the degree. So the benefits of doing the MSc Finance then really revolve around the flexibility in that second semester. So you can decide which elements of finance that you want to specialize in. However, it also covers a lot of the modules taken by students who are doing investment analysis. So students who do MSc Finance could also go on and take the CFA exams if they wanted to do so, although they wouldn't cover as much of the CFA syllabus as students who are doing investment analysis. And here we have the list of countries from which the current MSc Finance students come from. As you can see, the UK is featured there, alongside 5 other countries. And here's a testimonial from one of our MSc Finance students. So Do Coin Ngoyen is from Vietnam. She's from Hanoi, and she very much enjoyed her year studying at Stirling. And she is now a lecturer at Foreign Trade University in Hanoi. And I visited her a few years ago after she went back to Hanoi and began her teaching career. So last but not least, the final of our 4 master's courses that I'm going to talk about today is the MSc Banking and Finance. So it's directed by my colleague, Theo Diasakos, who resides in the Economics Division of Stirling Management School. So here are the aims and objectives of this master's course. So like all of the others, it's a conversion course. You don't need to have any prior knowledge of either finance or banking or economics or business for that matter. And as the title suggests, the course covers a mixture of knowledge relating to both banking and finance. So those bullet points speak for themselves. Professional ethics in banking is an important element of the course because, as I'll talk about shortly, there's the professional accreditation that's also associated with this master's course. And essentially, students study the relevant knowledge that they need to know for a career either in banking or in the financial industry more broadly. So there are, of course, different types of banks. There are your commercial or high street banks. There are investment banks that largely service the corporate sector. And of course, there are central banks that are fundamental to the running of all economies. They have control over the money supply. Some central bank chiefs have independence of their government, some not so. The central banks are critical to the functioning of the global economy. So all types of banking are covered on the course. And also financial institutions more generally. So we have, for example, building societies, which are quasi-banks. So there are many financial institutions that have some of the functions of banks. That's also covered. And one of the features of this course, which is attractive, is flexible design. So like international accounting and finance, like finance, students have a selection of modules which they can choose from in the second spring semester. So I mentioned the fact that there is a professional accreditation associated with this course. It's called Chartered Banker. So there's a Chartered Banker Institute. It's headquartered in the UK, but it's a global body. So it exists to promote professional standards amongst bankers. As we know, banks, did not have a very good reputation immediately after the financial crisis of 2008. And therefore, it's important that there's a professional body that tries to ensure standards of behaviour across the banking sector. So this is a body that aims to do so. And it has professional exams which give rise to the qualification of Chartered Banker. So one of the benefits of doing the course at Stirling is that students who complete the course are able to get associate membership of the Chartered Banker Institute. That then gives them an accelerated route to achieving the Chartered Banker qualification. So there are 5 exams that students need to pass to become a Chartered Banker, and students who do the course at Stirling have an automatic waiver for 3 of those 5 exams. So they have that accelerated route into attaining that professional qualification. The second point that's made on this slide is the fact that the university has an association with Santander. So it's one of the main banks in the UK. The name originates from the city of Santander in Spain, where the bank originated, but now has a global footprint. It has a high street presence in all major UK cities. And the bank on the university campus is a branch of Santander. And we have a work skills program with Santander that gives 2 of the students on the MSc Banking and Finance the opportunity to get some work experience by interning with Santander over the summer. Okay, so 2 students on the course have that opportunity to get some real work experience in a bank. So this is the structure of the Banking and Finance course at the outset in the autumn semester. And the second module there is unique to this course: professionalism, regulation, and ethics. So to become a chartered banker, you need to be familiar with standards of ethical behaviour and professionalism and how banks are regulated. And that's all covered in that important module. Moving on to the spring semester, you can see that there are two specific modules in banking that students have to take, comprising 40 credits. And then they can choose a selection of modules from the remaining choices shown there for another 30 credits in finance courses, or alternatively a course in data analytics. And then in the summer, they write their dissertation, which is worth 40 of the 180 credits that comprises the degree. Something to say here about the degree itself, which students graduate with. So students can obtain the master's, or they can obtain the master's with distinction if half of their top modules are 70% or above, and they have a dissertation which is 70% or above. So 70% or above is distinction. So students can achieve the MSc with distinction, or if they have half of their top modules 60% above, which is the merit grade, and they have a dissertation, which is a merit dissertation, they can also graduate with an MSc with merit. So across our 4 master's courses, students are not just thinking about maybe getting their master's, but maybe their master's with merit or with distinction, which enables them to then differentiate themselves more in the marketplace when they're looking for a job upon graduation. So this is the profile of the current cohort of MSc Banking and Finance students. As you can see, we have some home students from the UK and also students from other countries as well. And here is a testimonial from a previous banking and finance student saying how he really enjoyed his time studying this course at the University of Stirling. So, having talked about the University of Stirling in general at the start, having then talked about in some detail the 4 finance courses, I'm going to finish off by talking about what I call experiential learning, benefits of postgraduate finance courses at Stirling Management School. So in the classroom, you learn the theory, but it's also important to learn how theory is applied in the real world. So we have a range of activities which give students a real grasp of practice as well as theory. So the first of these I'm going to talk about is the Amplify Trading Bootcamp. So we've run this bootcamp for the last 5 years. It runs in the spring semester in February. So it's a 1-week program. It's not assessed, and it occurs during a break in studies. And what happens is that students are able to trade futures contracts on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange with virtual money. So no money is put at risk, but the actual trading experience is real. How does this happen? Well, what occurs is that Amplify Trading, they're a firm based in the City of London. They install software in our computer labs on the campus that links those labs with the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. So students have on their computer screen the actual software used by professional traders to buy or sell, to go long or short different asset classes traded in the future, such as equity markets like the S&P 500, commodities like gold, oil, currencies like the dollar against the euro, and also fixed interest products like US Treasury bills. What happens is that when an order is executed at Stirling, it's sent to the server of Amplify Trading in London. The order is then not sent to Chicago, but Amplify Trading work out what the profit or loss would be if the order was executed, and that's immediately transmitted back to Stirling. So the student knows if a profit or loss is made when the price starts to move, but the money isn't actually placed in the Chicago market. So the students get the benefit of seeing what would have happened had their trade actually been executed. So in the morning, during this 1 week bootcamp, students are in the classroom. They're getting taught by staff from Amplify Trading. And in the afternoon, they're trading in real time on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. So this is an award-winning experience. So the implementation of the bootcamp at Stirling won the CFA Institute's Innovative Delivery of Education Award 2015. And in the same year, we were finalists in the Scottish Higher Education Awards and in the Reimagine Education Awards, which is run by the Wharton School in the United States. We were shortlisted for those awards as well. So that demonstrates that it's a very good experience, which has been recognized externally. Students that take part in the bootcamp, they get a certificate, as you can see, that records the skills that they acquire during this bootcamp. There's a video that you can watch, which gives you some idea of exactly what takes place. And the top students, the top traders, are awarded a trophy based upon not just their profits or losses that they earn through their trading, but also how well they manage their risk and how good their decision making is when they're trading. And here you have some pictures of students in the trading labs, in their computer labs. So this is Piers Curran. He's the head trader at Amplify Trading. He quite often appears on CNBC, giving commentary on the markets. And this is Will DeLucy, the managing director of Amplify Trading. And here are some students who have won awards after our first bootcamp. Will's on the left and I'm there on the right. So we have the Amplify Trading Bootcamp, which is based upon futures contracts traded on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, CME. CME themselves have a global competition they run every year called the CME Group Trading Challenge, where teams of students from universities around the world use that professional software to hook into the server in Chicago and to trade on a simulation platform different types of assets based upon agricultural products, energy, metals, interest rates, equities, and Forex. So our students also participate in this competition. So the competition runs over 3 weeks. So the top 10% of students then move into the second round, and then the winners are announced. So our students have done well in this competition. So in 2016, a group of our students finished in the top 10, and they were then invited to Chicago to the CME Group Day of Market Education, and you can see 3 of the students there at the top of the Willis Tower in Chicago, where CME Group held their Day of Market Education. Another initiative we have in the context of experiential learning is a new initiative that we have just launched this year called the Student Managed Investment Fund. Okay, so unlike Amplify Trading and the CME Group Trading Challenge, which is short-term decision-making, where's the price going to be an hour from now? Should I buy? Should I sell? This is concerned with the long term. So it's a long-term buy and hold strategy, forming a portfolio of equities which will produce good long-term value. So this is a club run through the Students' Union, open to all students in all faculties across the university. And you can see here the committee of students that ran the club in its first year, a mixture of both undergraduates and postgraduates. So on the right there, we have Grayson Pfeiffer. He is a postgraduate student in investment analysis from Kansas in Chicago. And Chaitra, Also on the committee is a student from India, also studying investment analysis. And the remainder of the students there are all undergraduate students. So the Student Managed Investment Fund then gives students real experience of what it's like to run an investment fund. So normally that's the experience you get when you're employed, when you're actually working, when you've graduated. So our idea is to bring that experience onto the campus to give exposure to what it's like to actually manage real money. So the fund has just launched. It's currently launched as a virtual fund. The university is currently raising money, and we're going to be relaunching as a real fund with real capital later on this year. So students then, when they join the SMIF, as we call it, Student Managed Investment Fund, they split up into teams. Each team follows a particular industry sector, and students then have to decide what's the best company within the sector. So they pick a stock, and then they give a presentation at the end of semester when we have a stock pitch event, when there's some voting, as you can see from the picture here, on what the audience think are the best stocks to choose for the investment portfolio. So once the pitch event takes place, and it takes place twice a year at the end of each semester, we then use that information, or the students use that information, to decide which stocks to choose and then how to weight them in terms of the overall portfolio. We have judges who come along to these events. These are alumni, so graduates of the University of Stirling who have experience of investments come along and assist their students. They act as judges. They provide advice and mentoring. Students who join the fund, they also have access to a dedicated resource room, and that gives them access to financial databases, Bloomberg, Thomson Reuters Icon, and Standard & Poor's Capital IQ. So students don't just have mentoring, they also have the actual access to the financial data that enables them to make decisions about which stocks they think are best, and then how they should form a portfolio which will produce a long-term value for investors. An important principle behind all of this is responsible investment. So the university is signed up to the Principles of Responsible Management Education. That's a United Nations initiative. So students, when they analyze companies, they pay attention to environmental, social, and governance aspects of the company. Okay, so ESG. Okay, that's an increasingly important part of investment decision making. It's something that's incorporated into the Student Managed Investment Fund. So one last slide then, talking about experiential learning. So all students, when they begin their postgraduate studies at the University of Stirling, they take part in a program called the Flying Start Leadership Program. So this comprises the first 2 weeks of the autumn semester. So students from all of our master's courses, they mix together. So investment analysis students are mixing with students, not just from other finance courses, but from other courses within the management schools, such as data science for business, or the MBA, or the MSc in marketing. So they are split up into teams. They have workshops, for example, on understanding cultural differences. They develop skills in presentations, working in teams, working to solve various business problems. So the first 2 weeks of the course is concerned with enabling students to communicate better amongst themselves and to an audience, and to develop the softer skills which will enable them to be successful in the employment marketplace when they graduate. So that is the last part of the presentation. I've talked about the University of Stirling. I've talked about our 4 finance courses. I've talked about experiential learning initiatives across all of our finance courses. And so I would like to find out if you have any questions. So if you have, I'll be happy to answer them. So you may notice that there's a Q&A lettering on the right-hand side of the screen. So to the right of chat, there's Q&A. So you can, if you wish, type a question in there if you want to, and I'll be happy to answer. Or one of my colleagues, who's also listening into the presentation, would be happy to answer as well. Okay, so I hope you'll find this presentation to be helpful, that you've learnt more about not just the University of Stirling, but our finance courses. And as I say, I'm open to answer any questions that you may have. Okay, so there's a question, what are the criteria for obtaining a CFA Programme Awareness Scholarship? That's a good question. So we have 10 of these scholarships to give out. Basically, we give out the scholarships on the basis of academic excellence. So we essentially rank students on the basis of their performance on the course. And we ask students to apply. And so for those students who apply, if there are more than 10 applications, then we would give the scholarships to the 10 students with the best performance on the course. That's how we do it. I hope that answers that question. And I'm happy to answer any further questions. Okay, so the next question is, are there any opportunities to study for level 1 and level 2 CFA exams at the same time? Okay, that's another good question. So the students that come onto the course have different levels of experience. They've come from different backgrounds. So there are some students who have already worked in investments, who want to become qualified, who might have studied some of the CFA syllabus. So some of the students, for example, took level 1 in December. Some are taking level 1 this June. We always advise students to think about doing the CFA exams after they complete the course. Okay, so we cover 70% of the syllabus on the course. So you're in the strongest position to study for the remainder of what you need and to brush up and to then be successful in those CFA exams after you complete the course. So we always recommend students to think about the December diet of CFA exams after they graduate and finish their studies in August. Okay, that's always our advice. However, as I've said, some students come with more knowledge than others, and if you already have some experience of investments, it's possible to do CFA level 1 or 2 at the same time. But if you have no prior knowledge or experience, we always recommend that you wait until after the course before you attempt the CFA exams. Okay, so there's another question here which says, have you had the lawyers or law students enroll in the course in the past? And the answer to that question is yes. So I can think of a student from China, for example, from about 10 years ago now, who she had a law qualification and she did the course. So she completed the course successfully. She was, in fact, a Karen Napier scholar. So as I've said, we have no requirement for any prior knowledge before coming on the course. So a law student can do it. And this student was successful. Okay, another question. How common is it for companies, alumni with whom Stirling has links to offer positions specifically for graduates from your course? Okay, so that's a good question. So it does happen. So I was speaking earlier this week with a graduate from Kames Capital. So they have headquarters in the UK. They have an office in Edinburgh. And a former student was in speaking to me about offering our students an internship with Kames in the future. So we have good relationships with Walter Scott, for example, in Edinburgh, another investment management firm. So we do have opportunities for students through the course and through our alumni network to get a start on their investment career. I was in Ghana last month, and I met up with alumni in Ghana. And as a result of pulling some of our past students together from different years of study, there's now an opportunity for future graduates from the course from Ghana to get internship opportunities when they return to that country. So it's something that we use our alumni reunions for, to try and bring students together from different years of study and to give them opportunities to, give opportunities to our existing students who are about to graduate. So another question, are there tools to assist students succeed in the postgraduate school job search? So we have a careers advisory service at the university, which is very good. So yesterday evening, I was at the Student Union Rate Awards. So I was there because I was up for an award myself. But I also noticed that the Careers Advisory Service, they won an award yesterday at this event for their help to students. So we have a very good Careers Advisory Service at Stirling. They provide a lot of advice. Also, we have a dedicated employability officer within the Stirling Management School who also assists students looking for internships and also in terms of general career opportunities. Okay, another question, is there a link between the MSc Investment Analysis and CISI's Chartered Wealth Management qualification? There's no formal link, although many of the much of the knowledge that you acquire on investment analysis is relevant to wealth management. Okay, so although there's no specific link with the CSAI qualification, doing the course will give you a lot of tools that will help guide students in wealth management. And in fact, some of our students go on to work in wealth management. Okay, and I've just seen that Amy, my colleague, is very helpfully giving you a link to the career service. Thank you very much, Amy, for doing that. Okay, so Andrew's asking a question, the selection process to get into the CFA team. So it's very much the same process as getting one of the CFA scholarships. So we choose the CFA team in November. And by then we have some data on the class assessments. So we look at the performance of students on the course up to that point. We also look at the background of the students. So if we have more than 5 students that want to become a member of the team, we basically look at their background and, more importantly, how they're performing on the course to date. And that's the basis upon which we make the decision. Okay, Isaiah, thank you for participating. I'm glad you enjoyed listening to it. Okay, there's quite a few questions that have been fielded and answered. If there are any more, I'll be happy to answer them. We started at 2:30 in the UK. Caesar, okay, thank you for saying thanks. It's now 3:45, so we've been running for 1 hour and 15 minutes. As I say, I'm happy to answer any further questions if anyone has any. If not, I would just like to say thank you for dialing in. Thank you for listening to the presentation. Oh, Asaya, okay, right, we met in Ghana. Very good. Okay. Okay, what can prospective students be doing? Okay, so prospective students will be given a reading list. You should get that shortly if you haven't received it already. So you can be reading in advance. So I can give you some advice here and now. We always use Ross Westerfield, Jaffe, Jordan, and Hillier as our corporate finance textbook in the autumn semester. So reading up on that textbook in advance would be helpful. Keeping up to date with what's happening in the world of finance by reading, for example, the Financial Times, the Wall Street Journal, or the financial section of the newspapers in the country where you're domiciled. So any of those things are really useful. Just be aware of what's going on in the world of finance, and get a hold of a textbook. So the corporate finance one is really fundamental. So Corporate Finance by Ross Westerfield, Jaffe, Jordan, and Hillier. The third European edition is what we use right at the start of the course. Okay, so we're going to call this to a halt now. Thank you very much for attending. Okay. Can we have the presentations file? So I think what you're saying is, can you have the slides? So I'm sure that we can arrange for those to be made available to you. So great, we'll do that. Thanks for attending, and good luck, and I hope to see you. What's the employability rate for graduates? So University of Stirling has a very high employability rate. I think 96% of our graduates are in employment or further study within 6 months of graduation. So that's an official statistic across the university. So it's an extremely good statistic, and it's something that University of Stirling is proud of. Okay, so thank you everyone for your attendance, and I hope to see you at Stirling later on this year. Thank you.